Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Very glad you're able to spend some time with us. I know lots of bleary eyes out there today. For those of you that stayed up late and watched the Super Bowl last night, and of course the Olympics early this morning, it is a Monday without a snowstorm, which is kind of out of the ordinary for the last few weeks. A cold start. It was chilly out there this morning on the way in, but temperatures, I think, are supposed to rise throughout the week. We're supposed to sit around that freezing mark. So some of the ice that has accumulated perhaps in your driveways or on the sidewalks and streets of your neighborhood may start to melt a little bit this week. Unfortunately, there are some indications we will see some snow in the forecast on Wednesday. I don't think, at least at this part, it's anything to get too concerned about. Alistair Alders, our meteorologist on the morning news, saying maybe 5 centimeters-ish, but as is the case with all of these winter storms, still some uncertainty. We're a couple of days out yet. So stay tuned right here to 95.7 News Radio for the latest on this. Again, I don't think this is anything that is going to cause us any more headache. It just might be one of those ones you have to shovel, and if the temperatures stay close to the freezing point, then it might be that heavy stuff. So we will keep you updated on that as we move forward. Quickly, before we get to Councillors on the hot seat, my congratulations to the Seattle Seahawks. What a dominating defense yesterday and running game. Holy smokes. For those of you that didn't watch the game, it was a defensive struggle, at least through the first half. The Seahawks managing to kick 4 field goals as they headed into halftime. Things opened up in the second half. I think the Patriots knew that they had to score, so they decided to try something different, and that caused a couple of turnovers. They did score a couple of touchdowns, and the game ended, I think it was 29-13. And what a defensive stand on the Seattle Seahawks. I know that I'd been kind of looking at the Patriots defense, the Seahawks defense outperforming, I think, the Pats defense on this day, and well, for most of the season. And defense wins championships. That is the old saying, right? So congratulations to them. Seattle's second Super Bowl trophy win. So today is the day of the Seahawk, I guess, and then tomorrow we start looking forward to the next season, right? And of course, a lot of talk this morning. I know Vanessa is still talking about Bad Bunny's performance at the halftime of the Super Bowl. It's not the best halftime show that I've ever seen, but I will say it certainly wasn't the worst. Despite most of it being sung in Spanish, I enjoyed it. I thought it was the production value. There was lots of energy. It was fun. Lady Gaga, Ricky Martin in there, a bunch of other celebrities with cameos all the way through it. Those two a surprise to me. And how about the shout out to Canada at the end of it? That was unexpected, I think. So those of you that didn't like it aren't going to like it. Those of you that liked it are going to like it. And at the end of the day, it is in the history books and we move forward. But it, again, wasn't the worst one I've ever seen. Certainly not in my top 5, but I enjoyed it. I watched it through the whole thing. There have been halftime shows, folks, that I've gone to recharge the chip bowl during, I will say. So I didn't do that during this one. So anyway, I'm curious as to what you thought about that. It is, of course, Monday, and that means one thing here on the Todd Veinotte Show. It's time for our regular Councillors on the Hot Seat segment. Both councillors joining me on the phone today. We'll begin with District 3. That's Dartmouth South, Woodside, Eastern Passage, and that's Becky Kent. Councillor Kent, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Dan, and I appreciate the opportunity.
And on the other side of the ring, on the other corner from District 10, that's Halifax, Bedford, Basin, and that's Kathryn Morse. Kathryn, how are you?
Good. Good morning, Dan. Good morning, everyone.
Becky, I got to ask. There was a big fire out your way there on the weekend. Have you heard anything about the fire at the Old Sobeys?
I haven't heard anything beyond just knowing that everyone is okay. There was no incidents around humans, but the building itself has got a lot of smoke distributed. So the businesses there are just sort of accommodating and closed for a little while.
Yeah, that was it was abandoned, right? That old Sobeys store, there was nobody in it?
nobody in it, but there was a lot of storage things, a lot of
Right.
Stuff that could burn well.
Yeah. Always scary when there's a fire, particularly in a strip mall like that, because they can get out of control very quickly, right?
Yes, it can, exactly. I think it did go quite quickly as well. So, but the main part of it was within that storage area.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Folks, that's the telephone number if you have a question for our two counselors. They're here for the next 60 minutes to answer those questions. Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Council has been busy as of late. We had a couple weeks ago a council meeting and then budget session after budget session. The same can be said this week. There's a council meeting scheduled for tomorrow and then budget scheduled through Wednesday through Friday. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah. It's a pretty heavy schedule for the next few weeks.
For sure. We'll begin with Regional Council, and this one on the agenda, not a lot of information on it, at least on my agenda there wasn't. Mayor Fillmore appears he's going to ask for a staff report on a pilot project to try and incorporate HOV lanes or carpool lanes into the existing bus lanes. And I'll start with you, Councillor Kent. Your thoughts on this motion?
Well, the motion itself seems a little harmless. I don't know what's motivating is certainly there's been some discussion of it at the province. I'm not sure how well it will work within our city streets where it might be intended to be, but I think in general I'm open to a staff report so I can learn a little bit more about it as well, how it could be envisioned, or maybe it can at all. So I think it's not a particularly contentious one for me.
Councillor Morse?
Well, HRM has spent quite a bit of money building dedicated bus lanes. For example, on Bears Road, that was a multi-year project to get those transit lanes in place. They're designed to get the buses through bottlenecks, to improve reliability, to improve the time between destinations, to encourage more people to use transit. So I think anything that would make transit less attractive, I'm not really in support of. I think the main challenge with mixing high occupancy vehicles and bus lanes is that we don't have any way to enforce that at the moment. We don't have a system of cameras like they do in other cities, so it will be really tricky to enforce.
Yeah, and not to mention that the bus lane network isn't continuous. I mean, it weaves in and out of traffic, and if we put extra cars on there, that would create a bit of a headache, I would think.
Yeah, I think there are some safety issues as well. These dedicated bus lanes weren't designed for mixed traffic when they were put in place.
Also, before council this week, a motion from Councillor Purdy, who wants to have staff review the complete streets policy. She says that it's expensive and would prefer a maintenance first approach. I'll start with you, Councillor Morse. Your thoughts on Councillor Purdy's motion?
Well, I mean, complete streets are not done on every single street. Complete streets are only done in specific locations, usually where you have a high population density with mixed uses like restaurants and stores. So you have a lot of people on foot. And the complete streets have more features put in place to make it safe for people to walk around and use the bus. And it's designed to have sort of a more intense use of a street and make it more walkable and safe for all users. So it's not like we make complete streets in every location. Dutch Village Road was a complete street project. It was done because the street was in such poor condition it had to be completely rebuilt anyway. So I think we're very careful about where these complete street projects happen, and I wouldn't want to see us necessarily stop doing them without a lot of consideration for it.
Councillor Kent?
Yeah, I agree with Kathryn. I think that in general, right now, it's easy to pick things out of the air and just say they're too expensive. Everything's expensive. Everything's too expensive, frankly. And yet we still have a city that we have to plan well for and provide service and infrastructure. I think the complete streets strategy is I think it's pretty good right now. It doesn't hurt to have reviews. Don't get me wrong, but I think right now it's sort of an arbitrary motion that's coming forward, and we're in the middle of budget where everything is about the cost of service, and I just don't know why now.
Councillor Kent, now that we're speaking of roads, I've taken several calls here over the last couple of weeks about the condition of some of the roadways here in HRM and the annual pothole debate. I would imagine that, Councillor Kent, your phone's been busy?
Yeah, it has. Relatively busy, not as busy as other years because our public works folks have been pretty vigilant about getting out to the really ugly ones very early, and we did have a few here in District 3, particularly on Main Road and Pleasant Street, but they got to those pretty quick, so I was impressed with that and glad to see it. Outside of that, I am not getting a lot of calls. I think that there's a lot of discussion on social media as well, but so far it's been pretty good.
Councillor Morse, I don't know if Bayview and Lacewood is in your jurisdiction, but that pothole ate a taxi cab on Thursday and has been there for a long time.
It was fixed on Friday, Dan. I'm happy to say it was fixed on Friday. It was a nasty one, but it's repaired.
Are you getting lots of calls on potholes outside of that one?
That one got some special attention for sure. It took about 2 weeks to get that one fixed. We're trying to fix them faster than that. But, if people can report the potholes through 311 and get them in the queue, we are working to get them done as fast as possible.
Budget Committee heard from Public Works last week about potholes and the use of some technology to perhaps identify these things ahead of time, and I'm thinking sensors on buses. Councillor Morse, your thoughts on that presentation?
We can become more efficient by having technology, so I think that is a good idea. We already do surveys of our asphalt using special camera equipment. This might be a way to do that more frequently, so I think it's worth looking at for sure.
Councillor Kent?
Yeah, I think so too. I think that we have to make sure that what we're programming in is sufficient to stay within the policies that we have set now. But I think it's just the world that we're in now. We're moving to so many more technological approaches. But at the end of the day, Dan, the drivers are going to be very quick to let us know where the rough ones are, and
right.
and so as they should be. So it's going to be a blend. I think continue to be a blend, and our public works staff would still go out and check on the ones that it's going to be identifying as needing something immediate and what could wait a little longer. Imagine
you have hundreds of city staff that are on the roads every day that are probably have human intelligence better than technological intelligence.
Well, I hope so. Yes, that's how I would look at it.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. This is Councillors on the Hot Seat. We're going to take our first break. The councillors will be here for the next 45 minutes to answer your questions. Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the break. All right, welcome back. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the way that you access the show to get your question asked to our two councillors. Joining us on the phone today from District 3, that is Becky Kent, and District number 10, it's Kathryn Morse. Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go right to the phone lines and say hello to Glenn. Glenn, how are you?
Good, Dan. How are you?
I'm well. Your question, please.
Well, there's two quick things I want to mention to the councillors. And last week I was on and spoke to Councillor Hartland and Councillor Gammon. And after I got off, you just followed up the topic about e-scooters, and you asked about liability. And Councillor Hartland finally had an answer, because I've been asking a lot of the councillors throughout all of the summer and spring and fall, about liabilities. No one really knew. Well, there was a lot of guesses, and even the mayor didn't know. He said to email him, and which I did, and I never got any emails back. I emailed twice. Anyways, I did find it, the liability, and it's a couple lines, Dan, if I can read them.
Quickly.
The riders must be at least 16 years to 17 years old, but need a parent or guardian to sign a waiver. After that, it's by accepting the terms, you waive the right to sue for compensation following an accident and assume responsibility for damage due to the scooter or third-party property. And that tells me, I'm not a lawyer, that if you hit someone, you are on your own, and so is the person you hit if you don't have insurance. And one more thing about the cost for these financial implications on a motion on the floor was item number 15.1.6 through Regional Council, and it talks about the cost. Now, the cost for the end of the third year at 27 will total to HRM approximately 112 or $1,000,200 for the cost for the 3 years, and they're hiring a program manager at $110,600,000 for 1 year. That was for this year past, and there's going to be 2 of them apparently in this year coming up. They're buying 2 e-bikes, which is a little ironic if they're looking at e-scooters and they're riding e-bikes. They're going to be buying a vehicle for $100,000.
All right, Glenn, for the sake of time, your question for the councillors, please.
Question is, Council, do you know all this? And will there be any changes in this? And do you really think that these e-scooters are going to end up on the streets with us, with the taxpayer paying this kind of money right now?
Thanks, Glenn. We'll start with you, Councillor Morse.
Thank you. I voted against this when it came to council because I didn't think we had enough infrastructure in place where the e-scooters could ride safely. So I'm not a huge fan of this, but my understanding is it's a pilot project and we will review it at some point and look at some of the things that you raised. I don't think your numbers are all entirely correct. A lot of the expense is carried by the company, by Bird, but there certainly are enforcement implications. And sorry.
Doesn't say that here, Councillor.
Sorry?
It doesn't say that here in the financial implications on your amendment. That's okay. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying there are, like you say, are the people the correct age when they're renting them? I've seen some antics on the e-scooters that make me concerned about whether they're being driven responsibly and that sort of thing. So there are questions about it. We will be evaluating it and looking at it again. It'll come before council.
Councillor Kent?
Yes, thank you. There's a lot to unpack there. I think that in general, my position is it continues to be that the liability is a big issue. We have had questions around that. I've had questions around that to me, even about other forms of motorized equipment. But the e-scooters in particular, I look forward to getting that report back. It is a pilot, as Kathryn had spoken of. It's one of those things where I think that we've got a lot going on in our streets that right now is not regulated. It's very hard to police. There seems to be a lot of competing space for the roadway, and it is causing problems around some folks enjoying their space that should be protected for pedestrians, and then there's our trails that folks are using some of this motorized equipment on as well. And it can be quite concerning when there is seems to be no set insurance in place. It's not uncommon for, you to go to a city or be in a city where you have to waive the right to do something. It's never pleasant, it's never comfortable, but people tend to do it anyway. You get on a rock climbing wall and it's waive the right to do it. You rent a Segway and you waive your rights when you do it. So that's not unusual, but I think it still has a lot of concern for me. I did start to develop a motion for that because I feel like we don't know enough about it, and that's not just specifically about that pilot project and those particular e-bikes, about generalized motorized equipment being utilized on the roadways and in the pedestrian spaces. It seems like we're getting more and more alternatives coming forward, which gets people out of cars. Don't get me wrong. I think that that is the goal, to get people moving differently. But I think it's more complex than just one report and one example of sorry about that. That's my other phone. Around one particular pilot, we need to look at the whole picture. And this one pilot will give us some data, will give us some insight into it. I really appreciate the gentleman who has taken an interest in this. It's putting a point on some of the areas that we as councillors need to be concerned about when the report comes back.
Glenn, I appreciate it, and keep up the fight, I guess. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the number. We're almost out of time. We have to take a break for the news at the bottom of the hour. Councillor Canada got an email question for you. It says, where are we with the shoreline project that was supposed to help with erosion and to help beautify the site on Shore Road and Eastern Passage?
Well, it's interesting is I just asked that same question to staff probably last week during a presentation that we had from a staff, the director of the environment space that is important to us around the Halifax, the initiatives there. But in particular, that shoreline project, they have confirmed to me that it will be completed this year. I did hear parts of that it would be started last year, so I put the note on the table as well and said, look, we were told it would start last year, and we have the money in the budget. Are we going to get at it? And they assured me that they were. So, and it should be completed this year. So I too am asking the same questions as my residents are bringing to me, and I'm anxious to see what it's going to result in. I did get to see the plans more recently. I think that had to be finished as well, and the complications of a lot of it being done within the water space, dealing with other levels of government and navigable waters and regulatory space as well. So it's not a simple project, but everyone's anxious to get it rolling and see it happen. And
this was budgeted for last year, so it's not in danger of losing its funding as we go through the process this year.
Well, I think everything's on the table potentially. Right. So, I'm watching very carefully on it, and I would hate to see anyone put something forward that would take that away. It's highly unlikely that we would ever do that because there's so much money coming from the federal government on this one as well. So it makes sense to save that money and go forward with the project that is very much needed.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're going to stop, get an update on the news. Councillors on the hot seat will continue on the other side. District 3 Councillor Becky Kent, District 10 Councillor Kathryn Morse will be here right until 11 o'clock to answer your questions. We're back after the update. All right, welcome back. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Councillors on the hot seat continues. We're joined today by District 3 Councillor Becky Kent and District 10 Councillor Kathryn Morse. If you have a question, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Councillors, we know that the budget deliberations are continuing. Last week, a couple of, rather high-profile files came across your desks, and one of them had to do with parking. Council moving forward, at least with the budget process on raising parking rates and getting rid of free parking on Saturday. And we'll start with Kathryn Morse on this one. Councillor Morse, your thoughts on parking and the changes that the council is looking at?
Well, we're looking at new sources of revenue that would reduce the property tax rate, or increase. So, unfortunately, we're having to look under all the coach cushions for more funds. And this was one that came up because it's pretty typical in many other Canadian cities to charge on Saturdays. And one of the benefits would be that there would be higher turnover for parking if there is a charge. So it would make potentially more spaces available to people if they are downtown on a Saturday.
Councillor Kent, your thoughts?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. I think that it will be a contentious issue publicly. People who have the need for parking, particularly in the peninsula and the downtown, the center area, they'll be challenged by it. And I encourage them to just let us know how it impacts them. At the same time, Kathryn's exactly right that, we are asked every year, and more importantly for our public, to make sure that the tax rate does not go as high as it could be. Not the rate, sorry, the impact on the bills. At the end of the day, we do have to just try to find a balance in budget, because we still have to deliver the services and the expectations of the public. So at some point, there's going to be an uptick for sure in the the property bills, but we still have a number of days left to see if we, I like Councillor Morse's approach, is we have to look under all the cushions to find the extra dollars that we could save or generate.
Councillor Ken, is there a concern that we're going to drive business out of the downtowns, out of Dartmouth downtown and Halifax's downtown, and people are going to go to places where there's free parking as opposed to traveling downtown to do their business on the weekend?
I think there is always a chance of that. I think that's the case no matter what we do. There's going to be a cost associated to it in order to provide the service. I know that there's a lot of small businesses, certainly in our city, that still rely on people to come into the area from outside the area to find parking. It's still a balance as well for us to look at what is it we're trying to also achieve, which is get people on transit, utilize those modes of transportation. You could park somewhere free and then come to the downtown and still access those businesses. But I'm sure we will hear from particularly small businesses who otherwise would be starting to sort of feel the impact, I think, a little more than some of the more established ones.
Councillor Morse, I had a conversation with Sue Utek from Spring Garden Road Business Association, who's not very happy with this, and I'm wondering if you're hearing from the businesses in areas like Dutch Village Road that just got redone, but there's no longer, or may no longer be, free parking on Saturdays on the streets to get people into those businesses.
No, I don't think it's going to impact Dutch Village Road, but it may have an impact on the Spring Garden Road area. So I'm not surprised that Sue's a very strong advocate for her business district. We're maintaining the free parking on Sundays, so that's an option for people. And of course, we provide transit service all weekends, so that's another option if people don't want to pay for parking. But I mean, parking is a public space that is being used, and so we have to make sure that it's being used to the best it can and generate some revenue for the city.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Back to the phones. We welcome Pat to the show. Pat, how are you?
Not too bad. How you doing?
Good. Your question for the councillors, please.
Well, I'd like to just identify myself first. I'm the president of the Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 508. So I'd like to bring up the topic. I know that this afternoon during the Transportation Standing Committee, which, Kathryn, you are the chair of, they're going to be bringing up microtransit. There was a study that was requisitioned by Council in June of last year, and the study is going to be coming up this afternoon. A couple of points that I want to point out is a couple of troubling things. They're going to be recommending microtransit, and there's two models that they're looking at. One is a model combining it with our current paratransit and kind of having both work together. The problem I have with that, as I mentioned to Councillor Morse in a previous discussion, is that our current Accessibus model, they have a 7-day booking window. And in order for mass transit in order for microtransit to work, the booking model needs to be kind of on demand. And right now, Accessibus has been working towards getting closer to on demand, but it's something that they've never been able to actually do. And it's kind of troubling that they want to combine it with an able-body, service to make that on demand, and Accessibus itself has never been able to get to that point. It seems like they're kind of shelving, helping the population that is disabled in this city by adding something else to them in order to get to where they should have been years ago. I also have an issue with the fact that microtransit costs more. It costs a lot more than what regular transit does. We are currently looking at a budget that is, potentially going to ask the citizens of this city to pay more in taxes in their assessments and in the area rate. And I don't think it's a time to be asking for that kind of a service, specifically when the other model that they're looking at is to have everything contracted out, which would cost more. This is something that costs a lot more instead of using the conventional service we already have in place.
Pat, your question for the councillors.
The question is, what are your thoughts on it? Why are you looking at spending more money and possibly offering a way for Accessibus to be combined with a service that potentially would give them same day booking, but this is something that is again not something that has ever been offered to Accessibus in the past. Why are you not working on a broken system that needs to be fixed now by helping paratransit now and getting what those passengers want now? Start
with you, Councillor Morse.
Okay, thanks, Pat. You raised some important issues here, but first of all, just to explain to people briefly, we're talking about creating a new service using minivans or some type of smaller bus service to help move people in rural communities to transit terminals or get them connected to the existing transit system. We are trying to improve our Accessibus service all the time, and I do share some of your concerns about how we would bring in a new service and mix it with Accessibus, but this is something we'll be talking about more this afternoon at Transportation Standing Committee, and I know it's going to come up this week probably at the Budget Committee as well. We're still looking at how we would do an initial pilot, and Lucasville is recommended as a pilot because of the density of the population and the fact that they don't have any existing access to transit. So all good questions, but something that we're definitely in the early stages of exploring.
Councillor Kent.
Yeah, thanks. I have lots to offer here. So District 3 is an area that has one of those identified areas, and frankly, it's been underserved. Parts of it have been underserved. In particular, Cow Bay and Eastern Passage has no service for those many of the areas here. So the regular transit's just not going to cut it at this stage. The importance of it, as Kathryn has said, is that we are looking at alternatives for introduction of some form of transit in the areas that are rural and outside the service area now that can accommodate the important transportation options that those people deserve to have. They're paying taxes in Halifax, not specific transit taxes, but that also could be a cost recovery approach to this. I take a little exception to the approach that has been presented that we're somehow going to be shelving the options of service for those that would use the Accessibus. I think that's how it was languaged. That's just the stretch that is, I think, just causing alarm that is not even on the table. The report is in, and there's a lot to dissect in it. There's still a lot of work to be done to get to where we would have those service options, but there's many areas in this municipality that when they read that report are going to be very excited to think about what kinds of service they could potentially have. And this would only be meant to be a lead-in to the introduction of transit, as knowing that the growth is coming to those areas where traditional transit could come along. I am happy to see that there is a will within our transit department to bring council some options to serve these areas. I think it's the right thing to do. I've always thought it's the right thing to do. And I've worked hard on some of those issues in the past throughout my entire career. We are at early stages, and to get this kind of report, I think, is encouraging. Yes, it's going to cost money, but I think as well to alarm citizens to say, why are you spending money now? We're not spending money now. We're putting options on the table. We're doing the job that we're supposed to do. Staff were asked to bring it forward, and I'm glad they did. It's a fulsome report. We also have a manager of transit, director of transit now, who has come from other cities and has successfully implemented some of these kinds of micromobility transit spaces. He comes with a knowledge and experience of reshaping transit in large cities, and ours. I look forward to the things that can be done here that is different, and so it's encouraging to me.
Thanks for the question, Pat. We're going to take a break. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues on the other side. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues. Councillors Kent and Morse in the hot seat, here to answer your questions. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Quickly, before we go back to the phone lines, councillors, I'll start with you, Councillor Kent. Transportation Standing Committee to review this new report that you were speaking of before the break. We seem to be going down the review transit route an awful lot. Is this the final time we're going to do this?
I don't think you can ever say final in a city that's growing. I think that we've talked about review. I don't think it's really been reviewed to the degree that it is now. We have a new director, as I mentioned before. He's come in with some new energy and new ideas and new experiences from other cities that have gone through the same kinds of growing pains that we are going through. So I hope that it's fulsome. We've got a core service plan report that's come forward as well, and that has to be dissected and talked through. At some point, we really have to bite the bullet and start to really develop the plan that will move us forward in our growing space. And I think that we are there, and I don't know that this report has landed, and we won't know until we really look at it in council and maybe push it back and say we see this as going differently. But I'm impressed with Robin Giroux so far, and we may never get it right because we're going to be growing for a long time.
Councillor Morse, this new core service plan is calling for changes to almost 40% of transit routes. We just went through an exercise on this not that long ago, and this one comes with about a $70 million price tag.
Well, this is actually the first major overhaul since 2016. So, and we've had a lot of growth since then. We've added about 100,000 people since 2016. So I think it's well timed. Maybe we needed it a year or two ago, but it's looking at the overloads and what we need to do to improve reliability, what we need to do to respond to riders' concerns about timeliness and that sort of thing. So there's a lot in here, a lot to unpack. I was really happy to see recommendations to improve the number 3, which gets people from the west part of Halifax and Clayton Park, Fairview, where I represent, over to Burnside, which is one of our major employers. So that's, helping people get to work. What could be more important than that? And there's also a recommendation to have 24-hour service to the airport. So there are a lot of different things to improve this system as a whole, and I think it's really essential. And we're going to need to look at it in the budget and see how we can move this forward.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Joe to the program. Joe, how are you?
I'm okay, Dan. How are you?
Good. Your question, please.
Question for either one of the councillors or both is I haven't heard anything about when this pilot project for e-bikes is going to expire. That's my first part of my question. When is it due to expire?
I think we're supposed to be getting something fairly soon on. I think it expired at the end of the season. I believe that to be correct. We're not. People are not out there using the e-bikes now, and they've all been collected.
But the pilot goes for 3 years, does it not?
But we'll get some. I believe we'll get some updates.
Right.
So basically, you're not sure. Is that what you're saying, or am I misunderstanding?
I'm not 100% sure, but I do believe that we will be getting an update soon. Okay.
Having said that, I'm a senior, and I used to walk a lot. I find just my own experience, what I've seen and what I've experienced is these e-bikes are actually dangerous. They're a lot of times, not all the time, are driven irresponsibly. They speed on the sidewalks. I've just about been knocked off the sidewalk 4, 5, 6 times this last year. We've got to contend with e-bikes and manual scooters, skateboards, bicycles, wheelchairs, walkers. It's getting absurd. They are, I thought, sidewalks. Their mainly priority is for pedestrians, and it's turned into a poop show. And for one, I see several people on these e-bikes weaving in and out of traffic, up on sidewalks, around pedestrians, no helmets, 2 at a time, 2 of them on the e-bikes, and no one seems to be monitoring it. And I've witnessed 2 or 3 occasions when the police have been within the geographical area, obviously have seen it and did nothing about it. So I think they should be banned from the city. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. And that goes before. Sorry, Councillor. This is something that gets raised a lot with these things and others, and that's the enforcement piece. And I'll start with you, Kathryn Morse. How do we enforce these rules?
Yeah, it's every time a new technology comes in, like the e-bikes, it creates a whole new set of circumstances to deal with. I think really, e-bikes are an option for people that make transportation affordable, and I think they're going to be around. I don't know if it's going to be possible to ban them. I think we just need to. He's making a great case for why we need separation between sidewalks and bike lanes.
Councillor Kent.
Yeah, I agree. I think what this gentleman was putting forward was exactly what I was talking about earlier, that the complexity of so many different moving motorized vehicles in spaces where people are walking and should be able to walk comfortably and safely. That's exactly what I have concerns around. And so I'm not 100% sure that we succeeded with these these e-bikes in a way that tells us that they are safe, that people are using them responsibly. We have that problem with a lot of different kinds of motorized equipment that depends on the user, and even our motor vehicles. There's a lot of people out there that drive very recklessly, and so it's a responsibility of both the people using them, the public, and us. I think that us being HRM, our ability to police all of this is in my opinion, next to impossible, and I don't think we have the right approach yet.
Almost out of time, Councillor Kent. What's happening in District 3?
The District 3 this week is the suburban plan. There was one of the suburban plan engagements out in Cole Harbour area, which would be an opportunity for folks in District 3 to go out. I think it's Thursday afternoon and evening, and it's the beginning stages of the suburban plan, having an opportunity to speak to staff, get an understanding of what it is that we're trying to achieve, and then talking about the kinds of things that are important to them in their neighborhoods and in their communities. That one is a rescheduled engagement, so I'm hoping that folks from the District 3 area, if they care about how planning is in their communities, they should go out and speak to them.
And Councillor Morse, District 10.
Oh, we had our suburban plan meeting last week, so all quiet in District 10 this week.
Appreciate your time, councillors.
Dan,
Thank
just
you.
very quick, the meeting is at Cole Harbour Place.
Cole Harbour Place, got it.
Thursday.
Councillor Kent, Councillor Morse, appreciate your time.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Time now for the open hour. Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The first one of the week after the updates. Welcome back. This is the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand, and this is the first open hour of the week. Regular rules apply. You can bring anything to the table, should you like to. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Lots of information there in our first hour with our councillors on the hot seats. The transit plan is coming before Transportation Safety or Transportation Standing Committee today. It's got a bunch of changes attached to it, a $70 million plan, and I think there's a significant portion of the routes and plans that would be changed. 37% of the routes would be altered in some sort of way with regards to this plan. Councillor Morse answering my question about, are we going to continue to do this? It feels like we're constantly tweaking, and we probably should constantly be tweaking the transit plan because, to the councillor's point, we're growing, right? It makes sense that we start to see growth in areas, and we need to adjust transit. But the earliest or the latest story on the major revamp that I can find wasn't 2016; it was 2018, which I get was 8 years ago. But the issue is that this has got a $70 million price tag attached to it, and we're still not anywhere closer to having the BRT project up and running, right? The bus rapid transit program. The plan that's before Council today, quickly before we go to the telephone lines, will require 30 new buses in order to facilitate. Now, according to the story on our website, it's halifax.citynews.ca, this will require a mix of those 18-meter-long articulated, the bendy buses, like I like to call them, ones with the articulating device in the middle, and 12-meter electric buses to make the changes. The capital cost for the vehicles pegged at $53 million over the next 3 years, with additional operating cost at $22.1 million. The funding plan would add about $63.73 to the average property tax bill over the same time span. That, according to the report. So 30 new buses in order to make this work on a plan that is being reviewed constantly and is never going to stop being reviewed. At least that's what Councillor Kent said. So I guess my question to you is $70 million worth it? We know we have to focus on something, right? And I talked about this last week, that we are focusing on a bunch of things all at once, and I think that's part of the problem. We're focusing on fixing transit while we're putting bike lanes in and dealing with on-street parking all at the same time. And that just is, I don't think is the right approach. I think that if we're going to fix something, let's fix something, so that we don't have to, every 8 years, go through a $70 million exercise in order to make it better. But that's just my opinion. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We begin with Wayne. Wayne, how are you?
Good day, sir. How are you?
I am well. What's on your mind?
Wheelchair parking.
Okay.
Access to, those handicap parking.
Yep.
The other day I was at Sobeys up in Clayton Park, and I parked in the handicap spot, and I usually use the door to help me stand up, so the door is pretty wide open.
Okay.
Some guy with no placard pulls in between me and the other car that both had placards, and I put my window down, and I signaled for him to put his window down, and I looked at him, I said, are you planning on letting me out of my car? I said, I got no room to get out. I mean, I could have squeezed myself out, but normally I use the door to help me stand up. And this guy just looks at me like I'm retarded.
That's not the...
Go ahead. And that happens quite a bit.
It's I noticed it a lot too, Wayne. I don't have a placard and obviously don't park in the accessible parking spots, but I do see people that will pull in there and have somebody stay in the car so that they can move quickly if somebody comes to ask them a question, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, if they don't have a placard, they shouldn't be parked there, because that's for people with limited mobility.
Right.
But the thing is, I was hoping to get to talk to the councillors, because I was talking to some friends over in Newfoundland, over in the St. John's area, and they did a pilot project where they had retired veterans carrying around, that were commissionaires carrying around a ticket book in their glove box.
Right.
And when they seen somebody parking in there that wasn't supposed to be in there, they gave them a ticket.
It's the only way we stop stuff. We have to enforce the rules. And if we don't enforce the rules, people don't follow them.
Exactly. So
I agree.
I was hoping to get to talk to the councillors about that. Anyway, thank you very much, sir.
Appreciate
Have a great day.
Take care. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. It is something that it just makes my blood boil. And I see it almost every time I go to some sort of parking lot where somebody will, particularly if the weather's bad, will pull into an accessible parking space or a fire lane, and they'll let somebody else out of their car and let them run into the store to get what they need, and then they sit in their car and they wait until that person comes back out of the store. Like, that is okay. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go to Walmart after work today and watch the vehicles. And they have put a great big striped yellow area that says fire lane, and there'll be 2 or 3 cars in it while somebody's waiting for their spouse to come back from the store. And that makes it okay if you're in there and you can move your car. Or in Wayne's case, with an accessible parking spot, that if, I'll just park here, and if somebody comes, I'll move. It goes back to something that we were discussing in the last segment about enforcement. If we don't have a way to enforce the rules that we have, then they might as well not even be there. We had a caller called up and said that, it's the Wild West on sidewalks with e-bikes and e-scooters and scooters and all of everything else that's going on out there. And I see it, you see it, people riding around these on these alternative methods of transportation with no helmets, right? Weaving in and out of traffic. If we don't enforce the rules, people are not going to stop doing it. Now, on the converse of that, do we want to start hiring police officers to do that? I think this is a city piece. This bylaw enforcement piece, that we get some people on staff or revitalize some of the staff that we already have and get them out there and start issuing tickets. Because if we start issuing tickets on things like Wayne described to us earlier, people will stop doing it. Hello, Cheryl.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Oh, accessibility is on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of thoughts there. I notice, I have, several friends that drive and park at Scotiabank Centre, but now they can't. They're forced to climb a hill because the parking spots are gone.
Right. They used to be on Brunswick Street you're talking about, right? Where they put the bike lane in?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was my little secret spot when I went downtown, and it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think they could at least put some in the bike lane area or have left a few. If you take the bus, you're pushing up Barrington Street, and it's, bystanders are helping these people get up to Scotiabank Centre, and Accessibus, you can book that. However, there's say you're 10 kilometers outside of Bears Lake. There is no service if there's no bus stop, but they'll go to Porter's Lake. They'll go, really far out of the city. But because technically there's a bus stop there, those people have the Accessibus service.
Right.
Whereas people very close to the city core but outside do not. I mean, why can't they look at gas premiums? I know many people would, be okay with paying, $10, $15 extra for, a small amount of kilometers outside of that bus core area.
Right.
And they would even be okay with a van if some have fold-up chairs. These are not, some people can transfer, but they have a disability. There's many different options that they can look at. But I mean, I think that, barring all that, they need to look at putting a T-bar or something to get from Barrington Street to Scotiabank Centre, because you built it on a hill with no parking.
It's and I'm able-bodied, and I was there last week, and I walked up that hill, and I was done when I got to the top.
Yeah, and add ice.
Right. I hear you. Absolutely.
What? And I mean, people can't walk, let alone, it's and there used to be a tunnel through Scotia Square. I don't even know if that's an option, because I think it's been blocked off for years, possibly. There's a secret tunnel, but they don't talk about it.
Cheryl, appreciate the call.
Thank you. Bye.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back with the open hour after the break. Welcome back to the open hour, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. That is the telephone number. Your opportunity to join the conversation with whatever it is on your mind. Again, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. We say hello to Buddy. Buddy, how are you?
Not bad. Yourself?
I'm okay. What's on your mind?
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say in regards to the Accessibus, that seems like a lot of money. There's no reason in the world that I know of. There's 1,200 taxi drivers in this city, and I'm one of them. There's no reason why the city couldn't set up a flat rate with these drivers, including myself, to pick up people and take them to the point of destination and pay whatever we make up the slip to be.
Buddy, I don't mean to cut you off, but and this is just because I don't know. How many accessible cabs are out there?
Well, no, I'm talking everybody that Accessibus bus picks up. I don't think need an accessible bus. But maybe they do, and if they do, there's a lot of people that would use a taxi to pick up the odd person here and there,
right,
to bring them from point A to point B, even if it was going to work or whatever, right, rather than standing in a cold bus stop. That could be arranged, I think.
Okay.
Now, in regards to what I was actually going to tell you about was, when you become a politician, the first thing you do is to learn how to dance. What I mean is you learn how to dance around questions, okay? Any question that someone asks you, you usually try to dance around it. Where we have vets and other people sleeping in tents and spend $12.8 million on a bridge bike, I feel that the bikers are getting priority. I drove taxi every day, and the number of people that I see every day I could count on my hand.
Right.
You don't see anyone driving a motorcycle in the winter. And also, you don't see anybody with the right mind driving an e-bike or a bicycle. When I was 4 years old, I used to hear my father say, "There are nothing but glorified gangsters." Yes, that's what my father would say. And nothing has changed. Trump is a very good example of a glorified gangster. Example, Have a fantastic day, Todd, and it's nice to be on your show, and God bless.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Where are we here? Let us say hello to David. David, how are you?
Great. Good morning.
Your question, please.
My question is regarding, and I back you up on this, the councillors.
Sure.
Listening to them this morning, I just visualized in my head they weren't in your studio, they were online.
Yep.
And I think a couple times you actually shook your head, like what is going on here, to some of their reactions, some of their comments, some of their answers. And I did the same thing.
Okay.
I just think we are wasting a lot of money. There's a lot of money being wasted here. I've said this before. Every time something goes to staff, Dan, I think it costs them money. I believe it costs us money. Every time something gets referred to another survey, that costs us money. I mean, how many surveys do we need for this unbelievable, useless bus system that we have in the city? Every time you turn around, they're asking for opinions, and we're going to change the routes. How many times have we done this? And I just think that we're pouring out money here, and we're getting no further. We're not getting any results. I mean, listening this morning about these e-bikes and e-scooters, and the two councillors there I don't think they have any idea what's going on, Dan. It's getting to be a point that councillors on the hot seat just turn the dial off until 11 o'clock when the open hour starts, because it's just a waste of time. They don't have answers. They don't know what they're doing. I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm so frustrated as I watch a lot of these municipal little Jeeps and cars go around with HRM written on it, and a guy gets out with a clipboard. They have ones for your dogs and cats. They have ones because you have garbage in the yard. They have guys going around measuring potholes that have to be they just drove down my street this morning, and then he gets out and puts a tape in a pothole and takes a picture. Like, what a waste of money. But yet we don't have any regulation on scooters driving on sidewalks. We don't have any regulation on kids driving scooters with the helmet in the front of the scooter, which should be on their head.
Right.
And I just find this mind-boggling. There's nothing in the city that's going to take place unless someone steps forward and says, you know what, piss on this. We're going to make this move now. We're going to make this call. We're not going to go for another study. We're not going to go to staff. We're not going to go to here and there. I'm going to make this call. We're going to make this call together. We're going to make this better. It's not happening. And then one of the comments that really was mind-boggling from one of your councillors was that we're going to continue to grow and get bigger. I think you're too big now, and I said this before. We're too big now. We're in a mess. I listen to your show every day, sitting at my desk every day, listen to your show. I know you shake your head. I shake my head, and we're getting no farther ahead. And the only thing that gives us our voice is this show to come on. And you know they're listening. I know the councillors listen to this. You know the councillors listen to this. Probably even the mayor listens to it. This is the only thing they get backlash on, and nothing is changing. We're beating our heads against the wall here. So finally, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I don't think we have the right people in the right spots to make the right decisions, and all it does is turn over year after year after year after year. Until we get somebody who has enough, to make the calls, Dan, this is what we're going to be stuck with. A city that's growing, but growing wrong.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Lots in David's comments. I will say that I do know that those in the halls of power do listen to the program, because they'll quote stuff back that I say about it to me when I chat with them when we get things ready to line them up for the show. So keep at it, folks. And I think David's partially correct. I think you need to have good information in order to make a decision, but you don't need to do it 5 times, right? And the bike lanes is a good example of that. Tony Mancini put a motion forward back last year and saying, all right, let's woe everything up here and let's take a look to see if there are any alternatives that are available that are less expensive. We came back with 3. And then Council had to push another motion. The mayor has to push another motion to get them to go and explore things that are outside of the 888 bike network. Do you understand what I'm saying? It just feels like it's a never-ending circle of staff report upon staff report. And David's right. Eventually, there's going to have to be some tough decisions made, and I don't foresee that. I'll be very interested to see what we're going to see for tough decisions when the Budget Committee brings its final comes to the final vote. Going to stop and take another break. Couple of lines are open if you want to get into the discussion. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the update. All right, welcome back as we roll along here on a Monday. The open hour is underway, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. That is the number, and there's a couple of lines open if you want to get on to the show. And we welcome Gloria here on a Monday. Gloria, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Dan?
I am well. What's on your mind today?
I'm not calling about bicycle lanes, but I just want to say that I heard you mention that Mancini brought back 3 places where they could save money.
Yeah, the staff did.
Remember, little Sammy had his nose out of joint, and they did not go for the one up on Highfield.
No, they did not.
They went for, or Jackson, they went for the expensive one.
Yeah.
So they didn't go for the 3. Anyway, I'm calling about the fire on Pleasant Street.
Right,
and what
in Woodside.
What a great job our firefighters did.
Absolutely.
That's in a strip mall, and they were able to keep it confined to that one building. But there were more than 30 firefighters there for the night. And I'm reading from their report, depleting available resources across the city. And at Council, last week, a proposed hiring delay for firemen is under consideration.
They're debating the firefighters' budget, I think, this week during budget.
Under consideration, delaying the staff. The reports, our response went from 54.5 in 2024 to 67.8 in 2025, still well below industry standards.
Yeah.
That tells you how strained our system is. And we continue to grow, but we don't take into consideration that as we grow, we need additional police and fire. And I talk about shaking your head. We've had fatalities in fires recently here. And if you don't listen, if you can't listen to the fire department when they tell you the need for additional people, who can you listen to?
Exactly. And that's from the front line, too. That comes right from the union.
Right from the union. And they know what they're doing, and they do a great job for us. But to go out and what if we'd had another big fire while the one was on Pleasant Street?
Right. It's I said it before, Gloria, is that people don't ever really think twice about response times and firefighter staffing levels until they need one, right?
I can't understand people. People should be up in arms over this. What if it's your house,
right?
And there's or what if it's an apartment building with a whole load of people they have to get out? I can't, I don't know. I can't understand them, and I never will. I wouldn't bother calling into councillors on the hot seat because I can imagine what kind of a response I would get. So I'll let it go at that, but I encourage the residents to pay attention to what they're doing to our fire department and how we need additional people to be able to do the job. So anyway, thanks, Dan. Have a great
Gloria.
day.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. That is the telephone number if you'd like to get onto the program and join the conversation. Council will be debating the firefighters, the public safety part of the budget. I do believe it's on the agenda for Wednesday, but they've also have Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday scheduled as the first half of the agenda. is geared towards transit, and I'm going to assume that there's going to be a long and vigorous debate about transit. Lots of hot button issues on there. There's this plan that's going before committee today that would see 37% of the bus routes changed in HRM, and a $70 million exercise. Additional buses that need to be purchased, which include diesel buses and electric buses. And this is a recurring exercise, my opinion, that we just went, and I know we just went through 8 years is a long time, but we just went through a massive overhaul. Now we've got a new boss in charge of Halifax Transit, and now we're going through yet another overhaul, and still don't have the rapid transit plan up and running or functioning correctly. The debate ongoing right now, and I'm not sure if it will come up tomorrow, but that Roby Street widening project is part of the debate that is transit related. Not sure if that's going to be on the agenda tomorrow. On Wednesday, when Budget Committee will debate that. And we know that there's significant opposition to that in that community, knocking down houses and apartments in that area to widen the road. And then on top of it all, Mayor Fillmore has asked for a report, which will be part of Council's meeting tomorrow, to have staff study putting high occupancy vehicles, carpool lanes onto those transit lanes, and the feasibility of doing that in HRM. I can't, and I sat and I thought about this when I saw this on Friday, and I sat and thought about it over the weekend, and I know we've talked about it here. I can't see, with the network that we have, any case that would even make one iota of sense. The bus lanes are not connected. You're going to move cars in like you're moving buses now, in and out of traffic, which is going to create problems. And then you're going to put cars into the bike lanes with no enforcement, which are designed to keep the buses moving freely. Now, I don't know if we need a staff report on that or not, but it doesn't make any sense to me, unless maybe I'm missing something. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's say hello to Rafe. Rafe, how are you?
Good. How are you this morning?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
Good. Well, I just wanted to call. I listen to your show off and on, and I hear people. Dave is a perfect example. He calls in and just complains. He's got this raft of complaints against the city, against the councillors. He says nothing's being done. But then he's got a pothole on his street. When somebody from the city comes and examines it, takes a picture, takes it back, it's probably not the only pothole in Halifax.
No, there's 700 of them, apparently.
Well, hundreds, probably. Yeah. So something is being done in that situation.
Right.
Also, some of the decisions that council makes, people might not agree with them, but those are decisions that they've made. Bike lanes is a perfect example. A lot of people seem to be dead against them, but that's the decision that was made by council. And you might not agree with it, but and that they're putting bus express lanes in to try and alleviate congestion. Bike lanes are put in to alleviate congestion. I mean, maybe they're not being used now, but down 5 years from now, maybe people will start using them. And if I come back to this, if somebody is that against, he says we need somebody in there who's going to put their foot down and do the job. You know what? Take $100 from when there's the next municipal election and run yourself. If you need somebody with that kind of determination, then maybe he's the guy. Maybe he's the guy that can change things. I just think you look at Halifax as a thriving, growing city. It's a lovely city. It's a beautiful city. It has problems. Most cities have problems, parking and congestion. And if you want to talk congestion, try driving down the 401 in Toronto at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Been there, done that. Yep.
Six lanes of cars basically in a parking lot. So, I mean, I've driven in Halifax. Just one more thing I want to add.
Sure.
When they put these bike lanes in, there were 2 lanes of traffic, one going one way and one going the other, correct? There's no 4 lane. There's no 4-lane streets in Halifax.
No, not off the top of my head. Yep.
So you had 2 lanes of traffic. So they put bike lanes on each side, taking about 3 feet of road.
Yep.
So you still have 2 lanes of traffic, but now you've got bike lanes on each side. So people are blaming bike lanes for congestion. If there's still 2 lanes of traffic, how are bike lanes contributing to congestion? And now I heard on, it might have been your station, they're talking, it might have been a podcast, they're talking about putting a 3rd bridge in Halifax.
Well, that's been bannered about for years. Yeah.
Yeah. So that makes no sense at all, because if you talk about congestion, you put a 3rd bridge in, guess what? Now you've got even more cars pouring into Halifax. So I commend the council for putting bike lanes and bus express lanes to try to look into the future to alleviate some of this complaints of congestion that people are talking about, and maybe getting people out of cars. Transit would be the next one. Get a better transit system that, like you say, that runs on time, that's efficient. The buses are always there, and it's safe. I commend the alderman and the mayor, and these people put their lives on hold, whatever they were doing before, and it's a tough job.
For sure.
Because you've got people pulling on you from all directions. You got to be like a Gumby from Gumby and Pokey. They're pulling on you all kinds of directions. So I just wanted to put my word in to say, let's bike lanes are here to stay. So let's stop complaining about them.
Thanks, Rafe.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. May not agree with everything Rafe has to say, but I do agree with what one of his points that if we complain about council a lot, that's for sure. Just listen to the show. And if you think that it's not being run the right way, then maybe it's time that you consider getting more active in it. And I'm not suggesting that you even need to run for council. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it until the budget process is over. Budget meetings are open to the public, and there is a section of the budget meeting at every meeting that is for public participation. You got a concern about $70 million being spent on a bus study? You got concern about $68 million that needs to be spent more on completing the bus lane network? If you have a concern that the mayor and some on council want to tear down the Halifax Forum and sell it for real estate, go to the meetings. Get your voice heard. I appreciate you calling the show every day. I really do. But you can get all 17 mayors and council at once. And I keep saying that politicians flow with the way that the wind's blowing. It's how they get reelected. And you will be able to affect change not only by calling the show, but by going down to council or appearing at council via Zoom for these budget meetings. You can get your voice heard. We're back after the break. All right, welcome back. Let's see if we can get to as many calls as we can before we run out of time here at the top of the hour. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We say hello to Tim. Tim, how are you?
Good, Dan. How about yourself?
I'm not too bad. What's on your mind?
Well, here's what I get frustrated is what appears to be the lack of leadership with council. I've spoken before about needs and wants. It just seems that council doesn't want to make the tough decisions. We can't be everything to everyone or we become nothing to no one. But at the end of the day, they've been elected to provide leadership. There's going to be tough decisions made, but thus far, I haven't heard of any of the tough decisions that have been made. And that's frustrating because, yes, they're in situations where, they have to be reelected, but right now their job is to find the best solution for the constituents of HRM and surrounding areas. And that's why they're there. If they're worried about getting reelected, then they're putting their main focus or their secondary focus on the back burner. And that's, again, I'll say that's unfortunate.
It's the life of a politician, right? I mean, many will tell you that their first job is to get reelected, and everything else is secondary.
Well, you could say that the day after they get the day after they get elected, but right now, no fault of maybe some of them, but they've been elected to provide leadership and make tough decisions. And again, HRM can't be everything to everyone. I'm not sure how we're going to pay for all the stuff that they want, but I'd like to see a few of them come out and show a little bit of leadership because thus far I haven't heard it, haven't seen it, And as far as putting the couple of $100 down to run, if you get 15%, I believe it is, you get your half of your deposit back, or the $100 that somebody else had mentioned. But it's interesting sitting back and listening to them, because there's a lot of heckling and a lot of chatter and a lot of laughing going on, but nobody's really providing good leadership, which, again, that's why they're there.
Thanks, Tim.
Cheers.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We say hello to Sandra. Sandra, how are you? Sandra, are you there? All right, Sandra, we're going to stick you on hold.
Yes, hello.
Oh, there you are. Hello. Welcome.
Hi. How are you today?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I wanted to just talk about the carpooling idea. First of all, wasn't that initially mentioned by the provincial government?
It was at a Chamber of Commerce dinner last week, I think.
Right. Okay. So the province also dropped the tolls on the bridges.
They did.
It wasn't even a year ago, and I believe a study was already done, and I think it may have been the Ecology Action Center, but it was determined that the amount of cars coming into the city because of the toll booth being taken down, increased. And so when it comes to this carpooling suggestion, it's never going to work. I mean, you talk about the Wild West.
Right.
Well, it's there's thousands of people that take the bus every day to go to work, and the councillor earlier mentioned the route number 3, and increasing the service there. I looked at the schedule, and the route 3 travels from Lacewood Terminal through Halifax over to the bridge terminal in Dartmouth, and then moves on toward through Burnside.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes 1 hour, according to the schedule, if you hopped on the bus at Lacewood to get over to Burnside. And that's if the buses are on time. Right now in 2026, delivery service, on-time delivery service is already dropped, and it's down to 69%. So, when if you're going to introduce cars into bus lanes, it's just within 2 weeks, you're going to have workers that don't have vehicles, but have coworkers that do, and everybody's going to start carpooling because they can't get to work on time, even if, or get to work within a decent time. The city is small, geographically. Why does it have to take so long to go from Lacewood to Burnside? These routes have to change and make them more direct, from Spryfield to Bears Lake, you travel on the Dunbrack, you're there in, a few minutes, right? But someone in Spryfield has to go to Mumford and then take several buses to get out to Bears Lake. And I'm sure the amount of time that takes is, well over an hour one way. So, this carpooling is within 2 weeks, you're going to have people, using these lanes, and it's just going to be crazy. And within 4 weeks, the transit delivery times are going to drop. It's going to happen overnight. The idea is ridiculous, and it's not what the city wants. We want more transit. We want less vehicles in our city. You're just going to work, coming and going to work every day, mostly, right? There's the congestion with the car vehicles is definitely for that reason.
Thanks, Sandra.
And, I really want to commend the councillors that do not agree with this carpooling idea, and I hope it gets squashed immediately.
Thanks, Sandra.
That's all I want to say.
Have a good one. And that's we're out of time, folks. I appreciate each and every one of you that dialed the numbers and joined the show. And for those of you left on hold, my apologies to you. Lots of talk about transit. So when we come back from the update here at the top of the hour, we're going to have a conversation with the president of the Amalgamated Transit Union, Local 508, Patricio Garcia, will be here. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We are back after the update. right, welcome back. We've been talking a lot over the last little while about transit. And in fact, today, the city's Transportation Standing Committee will receive a new core services plan, which is a bunch of things attached to it, including a $70 million service revamp and a change to about 37% of transit routes, among a whole bunch of other things. Pleased to welcome back to the show to tell us a little bit about this from the perspective of the union is the president of the ATU here in Halifax. That's Pat Garcia. Pat, how are you?
Not too bad. Yourself, Dan?
I am well. Appreciate you spending some time with us here today. I guess at first brush, when we look at this revamp that Council is going to take a look at today, what are your thoughts on it? Well,
in particular, we're focused on the micro transit plan that they're actually going to be bringing forward. There was a staff report that was motioned and put forward last year, and the report's coming out today. So, the problems that we have is that the cost involved with microtransit is a lot more than, using conventional service. So, as was mentioned in your open hour when I called in and spoke to the councillors, Councillor Morse had mentioned that Lucasville is the pilot area that they're looking at. So, in the actual microtransit plan, it outlines that, the annual cost for them to run microtransit out there is near $1.7 million. And that's if they were to use a turnkey operation. So that's a third-party company. And that's kind of troubling, especially with all of the, cries of the 10.5% increase that they're looking at. Why are they looking to add another $1.7 million to their budget there?
To set the table for everybody, Pat, what exactly is microtransit?
So microtransit is an on-demand service, and basically it's similar to kind of like a taxi service, but a little bit more broad in the sense that they go around in minivans or larger vans, and you have an app, and you basically summon that you want this trip. And then they'll come out and pick you up, and then they'll deliver you to your destination. The problem is that they charge the exact same price as what transit does, right? And the cost per ride is triple or quadruple what the actual cost of transit is. And a lot of municipalities, this has been used in the U.S. and in other Canadian cities. They found out that the cost per trip is certainly a lot more than transit. Conventional transit, and we've also had some municipalities that have microtransit who have now started to combine people into one trip. So they've now said that Susan is on one side of the city and Lucy's in the middle, and even though that doesn't make sense, we'll go pick them both up because that'll try to reduce some of that cost per service, cost per service or cost per passenger, and the cost per trip. So it is showing in multiple cities in North America that this model is not sustainable.
Is there a way that you would qualify for this, or can anybody use it?
This is anybody. Anybody that wants to do it, they pick up the app and they use it. And a bit more of the troubling aspect is that they wanted to combine this with our Accessibus service, basically combining the on-demand service there. Now, a little bit of the history to our Accessibus service is they've been promising on-demand service or a reduced service window or a reduced request window for Accessibus passengers for years. They're at a 7-day window. So if you are an Accessibus passenger that needs to use Accessibus, you have to book a week out to do your groceries, to go get your hair cut, to go to a doctor's appointment, right? So now all of a sudden they're saying, oh, we want to eventually integrate this at the beginning with our Accessibus service and offer on-demand service. That's a bit of a slap in the face to those Accessibus users who have been waiting for on-demand service for years. Why all of a sudden are we saying, oh, we're only going to be able to offer it because we're going to put able-bodied people on your bus with you now?
It just feels like this is a subsidized taxi service, right? This microtransit?
100%. Especially if they use a turnkey operation by using another company. Generally that you get companies that operate it similar to a on-demand taxi service. If you do it inside, in-house, the cost balloons. You're looking at another $700,000 just for the Lucasville line. And the vehicles that they use, minivans and so on, they're not made for this kind of service. I mean, opening those side doors over and over and over again. I mean, I own a minivan myself, and I can tell you, if I opened up that door 1,000 times in a year, that door is probably going to have an issue continuing to open right. For much longer, right? And we've had several cities that have had those, across Canada that have had those minivans go down.
I would imagine that the taxi industry and the ride-sharing industry wouldn't like this very much.
Probably not. It would certainly eat into a lot of their service. You'd also look at it would eat into the service of stuff that already exists, like bay rides in Musco. Those things were set up years ago, and they do come off of our tax rate. And they're paid for. It would certainly eat into that kind of service. Some of the other things that are kind of troubling, when this was mentioned to me, it was mentioned that other routes in the transit service that are conventional now would eventually potentially be cannibalized and turned into this on-demand service. The Route 65 Alston Drive was the first one mentioned because of its lower ridership. It is significantly troubling that this is where they're going. It was only, 5 or 6 years ago that they got rid of the Sambro service. It was a community transit service that the tax area rate there paid over $300,000 to have that bus there, and they cut it. Why did they cut it? Not because of the cost, because they wanted that bus interior, brought into the city and used, all of those assets used to help bolster the core service plan, the core of the route inside the city. So why now all of a sudden are they looking to go back out to Sambro when it didn't work back then? And Sambro is actually on the list of potential places for this microtransit. Both areas looking at about $1.7 million to add cost out to Sambro annually.
Pat, we're almost out of time. I'd like to ask you about that motion the mayor's going to bring before council on Tuesday, looking for a staff report into putting carpooling lanes onto your dedicated bus lanes. What's your thought on that?
Well, it's funny you should ask that, because we have a lot of members that have been making comments on that. Now, that exists in other places in Canada, particularly in Ontario. The issue is that the bus lanes here are not policed. They're not monitored. So we even have an issue with the bus lanes as it is. I believe if you add, another avenue where people could, get some kind of a blow up doll or add something to the back of their seat to make it look like they have a second passenger, you're only going to have more abuse that isn't going to be monitored. And that's certainly going to kill the on-time performance of our transit system. I mean, right now we're already, our on-time performance is really poor. You had a caller that called in at the very end of your call-in show there, who mentioned how poor our on-time performance is. And 100% would echo exactly what she said, that, if you add that element of the public being able to use those bus lanes for carpooling, it is 100% going to make transit worse.
Pat, appreciate your time, sir.
Not a problem. Thank you so much.
That is Patricio Garcia. He is the president of ATU Local 508, the union representing transit drivers here in HRM. Going to take a break. On the other side of it, what does the real estate market look like for office space in 2026? CBRE's Atlantic Region Sales Manager Edwina Govindsamy will be joining us after the break. You are listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ostrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back. CBRE has just released the Canadian Real Estate Market Outlook, and it's a report that looks at all kinds of commercial real estate in Canada, and Halifax is scoring very high on this latest survey. I am very pleased to welcome to the show to give us a little bit of perspective on this, CBRE's Atlantic Region Sales Manager Edwina Govindsamy. Edwina, how are you?
Hi, Dan. I'm doing well. What about you?
I am wonderful. This is really a good news report for Halifax, isn't it?
It is. The report is great. It's, especially for someone looking for a quick snapshot on kind of like what's going on across the country in a very concise and digestible way. And the Halifax market was definitely a standout throughout the report.
Halifax reached, I think, the lowest office vacancy rate in the country?
Yeah, so it was the lowest in Canada at 10.7%. And I think the last time you had someone on the call, we kind of highlighted the 15 consecutive quarters of positive absorption we had.
Right.
So office has been performing really strong, especially, you know, in the Class A buildings in the submarket, which really shows that there's a lot of demand in the region for office space.
Do we know why? Is it because we're seeing more jobs created, or people are going back to work? Do we know why we've seen this improvement?
Yeah, it's a combination really of a lot of different factors. One including, I think, you know, companies thinking about their office space not just as desk for employees, but really repositioning it as part of their strategy to attract and retain top talent. So they're prioritizing spaces that have great amenities, location, and the overall employee experience. So as a result of that, I think we're seeing Halifax, and the report really shows across the country that people are really prioritizing quality space that checks those boxes. Those kind of spaces in comparison to other stock, like older stock, Class B or C, are performing a lot better.
According to a report released last year, Halifax is the second highest emerging tech market in North America. That's outstanding.
Yeah, no, that is outstanding. And I think that's been, you know, a lot of work in progress. I don't think we just got there overnight. And the tech sector continues to be such a great growth engine for Halifax. And I think we're going to continue to kind of see that, especially with some of the military spend that we're expecting in Halifax, which is going to be put towards cybersecurity and other advanced systems as well.
You're not the first to mention the military spending plan that is coming this year.
Yes.
As the country gets to its 2% of GDP and then eventually as high as 5%. The mayor very happy about it. The premier last week in the studio with us very happy about it. This is good news, I would imagine, for those that have space available and are willing to rent.
Yeah, no, everyone, like you said, Dan, is happy about it. We're happy about it too. It's such a major opportunity for Halifax. So something that we're keeping a really close eye on and expect to, I think, be a part of a lot more conversations moving forward. And in the report itself, it highlighted just the spur of industrial activity that we're expecting. So industrial is expected to see, you know, this big boost coming from the military investment. But of course, that's, you know, depending how that investment lands locally, a lot of that planned regional spending, I think, is aimed at expanding industrial capacity. So that's why we're forecasting industrial to see the first impact of all of that. But, you know, with this kind of spending, you can see a ripple effect across sectors as companies start to expand as a result of that. New businesses move in, and all of that really drives growth in the population and employment. And then as a result, you know, you kind of see everything kind of flourish from there.
The report also focuses on something that I've been wondering about for some time, and that is with the ongoing tensions between us and the United States and so on and so forth. The Port of Halifax tends to maybe fly a little under the radar, but they're also a bright spot in this report with the tariff policies that are around.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much happening in the geopolitical world around us that's impacting a lot of different sectors. And I think last year, uncertainty was definitely the theme of last year. I won't say that's vanished 100%, but we're still seeing some positive momentum on the investment side. And part of that is what you kind of mentioned, you know, the redirecting of goods through our ports and hopefully more investment along those lines. in Halifax, I think, and just the broader economic Atlantic region have continued to stand out just because it's been so attractive as a result of our fundamentals here, which have continued to be pretty stable. And I think that's harder to find in some of those larger cities amongst kind of all of those things that are happening.
Well, things aside, Edwina, with all this good news that's in this report and this on the cusp of this office boom, I'll call it, do we have the capacity to support it? Do we have enough space out there, or are we going to have to create more?
Yeah, and I think that kind of lends itself to the suburban market, which was really, a big standout in our report. Our vacancy rates there was, I think, half the national rate. And, part of that is because part of our downtown inventory is quite old. So we're seeing a lot of the new development, new construction that, like I mentioned, meets those check boxes of those amenities and the location, because people are, they're attracted to wanting to work closer to where they're living. Commute times are becoming longer and more challenging. So in the short term, we're probably going to see tightening in the suburban market, and hopefully over time, we'll see more development downtown.
Fascinating stuff. Appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, Dan.
That is Edwina Govindsamy, CBRE's Atlantic Region Sales Manager. This report available on the CBRE website if you're interested at all. It's very interesting that there's a significant demand for the so-called Class A office space. That's the bright, shiny stuff, right? The really up to date and the sort of the top of the list when it comes to office space. But that demand shrinks significantly if we get into the older and into the less shiny office space that it may be available in downtown. Walk down some of the streets in downtown Halifax in particular. You walk down Barrington Street and you look at some of the facades of the building that have been there for a while, and that the main floor is commercial, but there is office space available up there, and that is in less demand. So I wonder if we'll see a shift to perhaps build more office space as opposed to commercial space in these buildings as we start to see more construction projects get approved and start to get underway here in HRM. It doesn't take long to drive around the city to look at some of these new construction projects that all are kind of the same design, right? We have a main floor commercial area, and then it starts to become residential as you move further up. And I wonder if this report bears true, and we do see a continued increase in Class A office space, if maybe some of those commercial spaces, the spaces for stores and for restaurants and those kind of things will be converted into office space, because the demand is going to get to a point where it's probably going to outperform that of the need for commercial spaces. And maybe this is just anecdotally for me. When I drive around, I see an awful lot of these new buildings. Now, granted, a lot of them are still under construction and not fully erected yet or occupied yet. And I see a lot of that commercial space on the main floor that is still for lease. So I wonder if we're oversaturated when it comes to that commercial space, and if this flip-flop happens, if we see a lot of that get turned into hubs or those so-called hubs that would create the office space that would be needed, at least according to this report. Time for us to stop. When we come back, I'm a tech geek. I know many of you are too. And boy, that story about this new robot over there at the QE2, when I saw the story get out into the media, I had to try and get somebody on here to try and explain to me how this thing works and if this is the new wave of the future. Brand new robot at a Halifax hospital bringing Nova Scotia surgical firsts. Dr. Boris Gala-Lopez will be joining us from the QE2, as will Donnie Clow, from the We Are campaign cabinet member and QE2 Foundation Vice Chair, with this new tech that's happening over at the QE2. We're back after the news. All right, welcome back. As I mentioned before the break, I'm a bit of a tech nerd when it comes to particularly things like robotics and healthcare. And when I saw this story appear in the media, I saw it and I thought, well, we're going to have to talk about this because they have this new robot that is to help with them in the ER. And it's pretty wild, the technology. So I'm very happy to welcome to the show today to tell us a little bit about this and kind of how it works and what the benefits of it are is Dr. Boris Gala-Lopez, who's I'm going to try and get this right, hepato-biliary-pancreatic service chief. Was I close, Dr. Gala-Lopez?
Yes, you were. Thank you for the invitation.
I'm very glad that you're with us. And he's with the QE2, of course. And also, we are campaign cabinet member and QE2 Foundation Vice Chair. That's Donnie Clow. Donnie, how are you?
I'm very well, Dan. How are you?
Thanks for spending some time with us today. I guess, Dr. Boris, let's explain to the people how this thing works. It doesn't take over completely, right? Is it there to help you?
Yes. So it's basically a tool that we use to operate in the OR. And what it does is basically enhance the capabilities of surgeons to first visualize the tissue in more details, and at the same time allow us to do more precise dissection because it has better dexterity than even human hands.
So does the human do, and this is going to sound gross, but does the human do the cutting or does the robot do the cutting?
So we do the initial cutting, introducing the robotic arms into the body with instruments, and then we sit at a console, and then we basically guide the movements of the robot. So it's basically doing all the fine dissection that we otherwise would do openly with a more aggressive surgery.
So you're sitting at in front of a monitor with a kind of joystick and driving it kind of thing?
Correct. That is correct.
And this allows you to be much more accurate with the surgeries?
Yes. So this is enhancing something that we currently do for many, many years, which is laparoscopic surgery, which is similar, but we are at the bedside manipulating long instruments. So now with the robotics, first, the visualization is better because we have 3D imaging, which is more accurate. And two, we are basically controlling multiple arms at once with very, very precise movements. So we didn't do this in the past.
Donnie Clow is the QE2 Foundation Vice Chair. These things are not inexpensive, and they don't happen unless we raise money for them, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we raised for this robot $3.8 million. We still have a few $100,000 to go, but we've had some visionary donors, people like Tony and Julie Medledge, David and Dinah Grace, and New York Women's Health Initiative, as well as 1,300 other foundation donors contribute. It's almost $3.8 million at the moment. And the $3.8 million is part of a $100 million campaign that the QE2 Foundation is currently working on, where we're at about $85 million, with $20 million of the 100 dedicated to robotics, which we think creates a center of excellence. Just as a matter of fact, we have the highest number of robots per capita of any hospital in the country. And in the month of January, the QE2 did more operations using robots than any other hospital in Canada, including those in Toronto, Montreal, or Vancouver. So we really are leading the country at the moment, and it's leading-edge technology. And, we hear a lot about the healthcare system, most of which I'd say at times are negative with lots of anecdotes. But here's a real success story, and really made possible through a combination of working together with government and these visionary donors. So it's really an incredible situation.
Dr. Gala-Lopez, obviously with the imaging and the ability to be more accurate, is this going to speed up the process in the ER? Are you going to be able to get these procedures done more quickly?
Yes. So I think we have a vision to incorporate robotic technology as much as possible into complex procedures. And we're trying to go from orthopedics to, thoracics and gynecology, hepatobiliary. Soon we're going to be incorporating that into a cardiac surgery as well. The idea is that we can do more complex surgery and make it available for many Nova Scotians and other patients in Atlantic Canada. And so it will accelerate some of the flows for patients as soon as we are at 100%. Obviously, initially there is a learning curve, and that will increase a little bit of the times required for the procedures, but I think we're catching up pretty quickly. And thanks to the huge contribution from the foundation and the government, we are envisioning to incorporate even more systems, which will allow for more access to it.
I would imagine that the surgeons also have to undergo specialized training to use this kind of equipment.
Yes, it is very rigorous, and we obviously need to be experienced surgeons working in the field, and then you have to undergo training, which is both virtual and in person. And one of the things that was mentioned is that we're trying to create a center of excellence. So currently, all the surgeons have gone to undergo training in the U.S. for certification. And one of the things we want to change is to have that availability here in Canada for other Canadian surgeons, right? So we don't have to go anywhere. So they can basically come here to Nova Scotia and then get their certifications in here. So that's also in our to-do list.
Donnie, you mentioned still a couple million to go yet before this thing is essentially paid off. How does somebody contribute to it?
Well, it's actually only a few $100,000 to go, Dan. So we've got a little over $3 million of the 3.8.
Right.
But clearly, you can easily go to the QEII Foundation website and donate there, or contact somebody at the QEII Foundation. In addition, I wanted to just add one other point, if I could. With respect to the doctors, what we found, we did the first Da Vinci robot in 2019, and it was used primarily for urology and kidney cancer and gynecology. But immediately after the first Da Vinci robot landed, there were two new surgeons that were recruited within a year from the U.S. who were people who originated in Nova Scotia, but were in fact only trained on those robots. And they couldn't come home because they didn't have a robot. They'd have to then be trained in open surgery. And also with the Da Vinci XI, which is the one that's just been delivered, the gynecology department has actually recruited two new surgeons. So, and again, these surgeons have been only trained to only operate on these robots. So it's really the standard of care internationally. And so having it here allows us to, both recruit new doctors as well as take the doctors. Obviously, we have great doctors here, but then train them on the robotics and create a center of excellence in training. So it really is remarkable change in terms of the level of care that Nova Scotians and really truly Atlantic Canadians are going to receive.
Gentlemen, we're out of time. I appreciate you spending some of your time with us today, and all the best.
All right.
Thank you so much.
That is Dr. Boris Gala-Lopez and Donnie Clow from the QE2. The Da Vinci robot's newest iteration is working, I guess, in the ERs here in Halifax. And it looks like not only is this going to allow for more precise surgeries, it might speed things up, become a training center for others, and look, from what Donnie was saying, is a recruitment tool. We're getting doctors to come home, and that's always a good thing. Time to take a break. When we come back, if you were listening to our interview last week with the Premier, I asked him about the credit rating of the province being downgraded, and he didn't seem to be very concerned about it. The Liberal Party certainly is. The NDP are certainly concerned about it, as is the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. A conversation with Devin Drover, Atlantic Director and General Counsel for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, right after this break. Welcome back to the Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. If you were listening to our program last week with our conversation, our hour-long call-in with the Premier of Nova Scotia, lots of subjects broached, of course, and one of them was the the finances and the financial stability of the province of Nova Scotia, and word that one of the big players when it comes to credit ratings for big provinces and countries and businesses and such was S&P Global, and they have downgraded Nova Scotia's credit rating from AA- to A+. And that, of course, is raised the concern of the opposition parties. I asked the Premier about it in our conversation, and he didn't seem to be too concerned about the whole thing. He's just like, look, stuff is expensive. We have to spend on people. He did say that we're looking at another deficit budget when that happens, when the session gets back underway here at the end of the month. And I tried to narrow him down as to what it's going to be like, and I think he's going to be in the $1 to $1.2 billion deficit range, which is a concern. And it's a concern for the credit rating company, too, who have suggested that because we're looking at not just one, but two deficit budgets in the future, that they're concerned about their debt and some risk. And so they lowered the credit rating for the province. This has also concerned the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, and we're pleased to welcome back to the show CTF Atlantic Director and General Counsel. That's Devin Drover. Devin, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
The Premier was kind of sloughing it off. He's like, whatever, right?
Yeah, certainly wish-washy comments from the Premier on this. And I think, at a time where Nova Scotians are struggling, the last thing they want to see is more of their money be used to pay back huge government interest charges. And if you look at the numbers, I mean, Nova Scotian taxpayers are paying about $1.2 billion with a B every year just in interest on provincial debt. And when you break that down per person, that's over $1,000 that one pays in taxes every year that goes towards, big bondholders rather than, being used in hospitals, classrooms, or roads. So, yeah, I think we need to see actual concrete action from this government because, they can't just run deficits forever. It's either going to lead to service cuts in the future, or it's going to be lead to tax hikes in the future. And I don't think the average Nova Scotian can afford either right now.
Premier, in that same interview, said that the budget's coming out here very shortly and that we'll be in deficit and will be over $1 billion again this year.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, it's not like one of the things the Premier does is often talks about how they have a mandate to increase spending in healthcare. And that was, the big part of their initial election campaign where they won their majority government, the promise to fix healthcare. And they've often pointed to the size of the deficit as being, healthcare driven. But if you look at about the spending today, about 60% of the new spending that's being done is not in healthcare. We've seen government grow across the board. So, I think a real simple solution to this is just to trim spending back to where we were in 2022, just 4 years ago. That alone would go a long way in beating the deficit down. And, we need to see action. And, there's other, the places have gone through this before. It's not a novel situation. You can even look to what the federal government under Liberal Prime Minister Jean Chrétien did in the 90s, where they put in a comprehensive review of government spending, and they found billions of dollars in savings, managed to balance the budget and, cut taxes. I think the Premier needs to, start taking this action seriously. I think his cabinet needs to start taking this issue seriously and actually look at ways to, eliminate waste, eliminate duplication, get rid of programs that aren't delivering results so that, we're not seeing tax hikes or service cuts in the future.
Premier said that it's time now to invest in people and people are cost money.
Yeah, and again, the issue with that is investment is such a funny political speak word to just say we're using your tax dollars on yourself. You can't bribe people with their own money, and at a time now where Nova Scotians pay some of the highest taxes, we did see meaningful tax cuts last year from the Houston government to their credit, and we were very pleased with those tax cuts. But at the same time, if the amount that the taxpayers are paying in interest costs every year keeps going up, it's eroding any of those tax cuts that the Premier has brought in. So, when we're talking about debt, it's really about priorities and trade-offs, but we can't just be trading off, future generations in tax hikes and service cuts for today's people.
Premier's touted some pretty significant projects as the way to financial freedom for the province of Nova Scotia. One, of course, is Wind West. But that could be as many as 2 decades down the road before it's it's up and running to full capacity. We continue to spend like this, we're going to spend ourselves into big trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. And, resource development is hugely important. Nova Scotians should be developing the resources, and I think that's a great priority for the Houston government. But it can't come at the cost of, major spending, reckless spending now. And, S&P was very clear on their credit downgrade. It wasn't, the result of some technical change or the way they look at it, government debt. They downgraded Nova Scotia because quite simply the province has not been able to control its spending. And, we've seen this with even last month, the deficit numbers for this year or for last year turned out to be another $100 million more than they expected just a month prior. So, it's very clear that spending is out of control. And, we can kick that can down the road all we want, but, we need action on this so that, it's a sickening thought when a Nova Scotian pays the first $1,100 in their taxes and they're literally seeing nothing of it because it's all going to bondholders. And that's just because government spends more every year than it takes in. So we need to see action from the Premier. I look forward to the budget. I hope to see some positive news for taxpayers in the budget, but constant deficit spending is not the answer.
And the favorite method these days, it appears, for the province to get things done is to handle these untendered contracts, and that just is a recipe for it being expensive.
Absolutely. And this, again, comes down to just how, government prioritizes its actions. And when they're doing things like that are inefficient and are going to cost more for taxpayers, they need to look back and reflect and see if there's a different way of doing things. And, at the end of the day, I think Nova Scotians deserve a government that lives within its means, one that delivers services without piling on more debt. And, this downgrade is a warning, and the Premier needs to take it seriously.
That on the other side of that equation, Devin, it's easy for a government to say things and to put the press releases out and have the announcements, but at the end of the day, it's not an easy thing to try and whittle that deficit down, is it?
No, I mean it does require action, and it does require being honest with taxpayers that the province is facing a difficult financial circumstances. But I think we're all adults in the room here, and we can handle the fact that something needs to change. And I think the Premier can be honest with people in looking for ways to restrict spending, ways to find efficiencies, that it's ultimately in everyone's best interest. So I think it's about having those honest conversations. I think as a country we had that in the 90s when we saw kind of a general consensus amongst provinces and political parties, regardless of stripe, that we couldn't be racking up government debt constantly. I think we've moved away from that in Nova Scotia, and there needs to be a bigger commitment to finding savings, making sure that programs are being delivered properly, making sure the contracts are being rewarded appropriately, such that we're not just racking up government debt again.
The party had a AGM this weekend here in Halifax, and while most of it was done behind closed doors in a post-convention news conference, the Premier was musing about the size of the civil service. Is that somewhere where we should look to maybe save some money?
Yeah, I mean, it's and it's difficult to have these conversations, and nobody wants to talk about job cuts. But even if you look at the compensation level, salaries and wages is tied for the largest line item in Nova Scotia's government budget. And basically, I think they spend $6.4 billion on government salaries, which is about 65% of what it collected via personal taxes, so income taxes and consumption taxes. So that's a large source of expenditure for the government there. And if you look at the studies, show that the average government employee in Canada earns a premium compared to private sector workers. I think about 9% more. And I think there's a way to reduce government salaries in the long term, mostly through attrition, such that it matches more fairly with somebody in the private sector makes. So I think there's expenditure savings there that really could help return to a surplus position.
Devin, appreciate your time.
Thanks so much.
That is Devin Drover. He is the CTF Atlantic Director and General Counsel. That's going to do it for the Monday edition of the show, everybody. My endearing gratitude to Vanessa Vandenez, who's still listening to Bad Bunny this morning, who does a fantastic job on the other side of the glass, keeping things organized and making changes on the fly. It tends to happen around here. Awesome work as always. My thanks to all of our guests who joined us on the show to impart their knowledge. I hope that you learned stuff off of it, because I certainly did. And a special thanks to all of you who pick up the phone, dial the numbers, and join the program. Without you, it would be pretty boring open hour, and I truly look forward to it each and every day, and I know that many of you do as well. Well, we know that there's a Transportation Standing Committee on Transit today. We'll keep our eyes on that. We'll keep our eyes on Milan Cortina as well, as Canada now up to 2 medals. Go Canada, go. The women's hockey team will take to the ice later this afternoon. Looking forward to that. Until then, everybody, get out there and enjoy Nova Scotia. We're so lucky to live where we do. Be well, and remember, most importantly, be kind to one another.